Greetings, guys. Welcome to another episode of CEO Chatter Live. I'm your hostess, the award-winning editor-in-chief of Swagger Magazine, Fancy. And today I'm excited to have a special guest with me. I'm honored to be speaking with her. So if I seem a little nervous, I might be just a little. But I'm gonna bring her in just a minute. In the meantime, I'm giving you all an opportunity to share this episode with your network and let them know, about the episode so they can tune in as well. And then also in the comments, if you're watching, please let us know where you're watching from. I just like to know that for myself. So I'm going to go ahead on and get into the introduction of my special guest today, who is none other than Dr. Cindy Trimm. Dr. Trimm, the speaker, is seasoned with humor, compassion, revelatory insight, and personal candor. Dr. Trimm translates hard-hitting spiritual insights into everyday language that empowers individuals to activate purpose and maximize potential. She frequently appears on popular TV and radio programs, as well as keynotes on international platforms that touches millions with the gospel. Dr. Trimm, the author. As an author, Dr. Trimm has repeatedly topped bestseller lists with what have become renowned classics such as Commanding Your Morning, The 40-Day Soul Fast, The Rules of Engagement for Overcoming Your Past, and Prevail, Discover Your Strengths in Hard Places. And then there's Dr. Trimm, the advocate. Reaching beyond the pulpit, Dr. Trimm's ministry extends to the global mission field by joining forces with partners around the world. Cindy Trimm Ministries International engages in medical missions, food relief, and resourcing those in need with tools that will change the trajectory of their lives and communities. So, without further ado, let me go ahead on and bring her in, y'all.
Hey there.
Greetings. How are you doing?
On top of the world, still rising, and really honored to be a part of what you are doing today in the world to empower individuals to discover purpose and live a more meaningful life. So I'm really blessed and honored to be here today.
Well, thank you so much. So we'll just go ahead on and get into things. I love to ask guests my favorite question because I feel like it tells a lot about a person. So, how would you describe your swagger? What makes Dr. Cindy Dr. Cindy?
Dr. Cindy, living authentically, living from a place of my true identity, operating every day, challenging myself to operate at the highest level of my potential, and knowing that I'm a gift from God to humanity, given to make a difference in this world. And showing up every day, answering the question, how can I make the difference? So that's what makes her. I am authentic, I am audacious, and I am original, always.
Wow. And I've been reading your book, Unstoppable. I have it here with me. We're going to talk about it in a minute. But I just think from what you just said, that's also what I gathered of you from the book as well. So I totally agree with all of that. And it's so crazy that you're talking about authenticity. I have a blog that is going to be released this week where I talk about authenticity in Black women as well. So I was like, I listed some women, but I should have had you on that list too, I see. I might have to go back and edit that.
I think you need to go back and edit it.
I'm going to do that. So, in your work, you emphasize the importance of personal development and spiritual growth. How do you believe these aspects intersect with the challenges and experiences faced by Black business owners specifically?
I think that, for a lot of individuals that own businesses, what they're looking, what the average person does is look at their product and then the people that they want to market that product to, but they don't see themselves as the product. And this is why personal branding is important. Everything grows out of your purpose, everything grows out of your potential, it grows out of your understanding of yourself as an individual. So it grows out of your identity. And if you are doing things that are misaligned with that, that means that when the external environments and when people change or even the industry change, you change to accommodate that. And that's the wrong way to succeed. You've got to, success is an inside job. It's not what you do outside. It's what who you are inside. And I think we need to journey within before we journey without. We need to get to know who we are as an individual. We need to get to know our identity. We need to get to know our purpose. We need to get to know our gifts, our talents, our ability. We need to do that inside work. What are my core values? Because the world is filled with conspiracy theories and it can cloud your view, your view of yourself, who you are, how you show up in the world. It can all be clouded. And what we need is clarity, not clarity of an industry that'll come as you navigate the terrain of your specific industry. But it'll make a difference when you know who you are, what you want in life, and you build everything around that. Because when the world change, it's going to be your truth that's going to sustain you. Everybody wants to tell their truth, but they never clarify the truth about who they are and who they have the potential to be. So we put our gifts out there, but it's always at the expense of our greatness. And we are the product. People buy into you before they buy from you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can show up authentic with transparency and integrity of person, integrity is different from credibility. Credibility is you not lying to me. Integrity is you not lying to yourself. So when the hardest journey, the toughest journey, and the scariest journey is not the journey without, it's not outer space, it's inner space.
Wow. And I agree with you so much with so much of what you've just said. Even just the part about telling your story. I do want to return to that in just a minute. But also, I always tell my clients, like people have, and when I'm writing in the newsletter all the time, like people have to buy into you first before, they buy from you. So I'm so glad to hear you say that so people know, okay, I'm not just saying that. Even Dr. Cindy Trimm has said that as well.
Mhm.
Um, but now, moving on to my next question. So, in your book, Commanding Your Morning, it has inspired many individuals to take charge of their day and manifest positive outcomes. How can Black business owners apply the principles from your book to set themselves up for success and maintain a resilient mindset in the face of adversity?
Wow. So let me start out with a quote, and then I'll answer that. It's from a book called The Education of the Negro, or The Miseducation of the Negro. Carter G. Wilson said, "If a man is born if a man is born in ignorance to parents that are ignorant, in a society that is ignorant, lives a life of ignorance, and eventually dies in ignorance, then ignorance is the norm. Thus, indoctrination can be called education, hypnosis can be called um, entertainment, criminals can be called leaders, and lies can be called the truth because his mind was never his own." And I think, that holds a lot of truth today, that in order for you to do what you're going to do, you got to be able to own your own mind. So going back to, and that was not Carter G. Wilson, that was an unknown author, but Carter G. Wilson said, Woodson said, "If you can control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his action. And when you determine what a man shall think, you do not have to concern yourself about what he will do. If you can make a man feel that he is inferior, you do not have to compel him to accept an inferior status, for he will seek it himself. And if you make a man think that he is justly an outcast, you do not have to order him to the back door. He will go without being told, and if there be no back door, his very nature will demand one." That is Carter G. Wilson. The first quote was written by an unknown author. But when you combine these two, and one of the reasons why I wanted to start with these two is, navigating the new normal is what everyone is talking about. But we have to determine what is normal, because I think in most instances, we are not living a normal life. Normal life is not struggling. Normal life is not hatred. Normal life is not competition. Normal life is not poverty. Normal life is not continuously failing over and over. We have to define or redefine what is normal for us. And
Mhm.
most of us are being controlled by algorithms. We just don't know. And if you look at the average person, they sit on social media or YouTube to determine what they should be doing, not knowing that they have the ability to craft their own destiny because your future is on the inside of you. And it doesn't come from with outside of you. Life is not happening to you, it's happening for you because of you. Could things be the way they are because you are the way you are? And what one thing can you change that can change everything? You could change the story you tell yourself. And it's all about your internal dialogue. And a lot of times we have these positive affirmations and positive declarations that we are actually canceling out with our internal dialogue. For as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So you show me the finances of a person, and I'll show you his thoughts without having to ask him. Show me the station, the nature of his relationships. I'll show you his thoughts. Show me what he's accomplished. I'll show you his thoughts. So a lot of times we think that we're fighting people out here or these malevolent evil forces out here or government or what our father didn't do, what our mother didn't do, and who didn't open doors for us. But I often say to most people, look, if a door is not open for you, build one and open that door for others.
Mhm.
And if you're not invited around the table, build a table and invite others. So we are in control of our future. And I look around at my house where I live. I look at my bank account and I had to take responsibility for it. Yes, God will give you the thoughts and the ideas, but you will have to execute it. And so when we learn how to take personal responsibility for our lives, when we understand that our life is a reflection of our thoughts and our habits and our disciplines and the words we speak and what we allow and what we don't allow, that means that our future is in our control. And it can start with how you speak about yourself. It can start with your daily declaration. And I often say to people, look, you can download success into your day the night before. And that's why I wrote the book, Commanding Your Morning, because if you can think it, you will say it and you can have it because you are your first prophet. You're the one that is um, engineering the trajectory of your life. Nobody else.
Yeah. I agree with that. And again, I see that kind of like that running theme, throughout your books and throughout your work. So I totally agree with those things as well. And so, as I mentioned, I'm enjoying reading your latest book, Unstoppable. In my line of work, I find outlets for clients to share their stories. As y'all can see, I got some stuff marked in here, but one of my questions is coming from here. But I find outlets for clients to share their stories. And I totally agree with you about not sharing your story until you can share a lesson from it. So I wanted to know, I wanted to read a part of the book where, as you mentioned this,
Which
because
page?
it's page 35, a little from 35 and 36. On 36, what you were explaining was basically just how to not to share your story for pity.
Yeah.
And I like that. And I think oftentimes what I see people struggling with kind of comes from this part right here. You said your life does not have to be like this anymore. From now on, I want to encourage you to see yourself differently. No one can go back to an old built beginning to change anything, but you can start right now by taking a simple adjustment to create a new and powerful ending. Don't tell your story again until you can turn it into one that empowers you and others. Yes, talk about the pain, but also talk about your defining moment, the painful moment that pointed you to purpose, the one that summoned your potential. And I think I oftentimes see people sharing their stories, but they don't have a lesson to go along with it. And I think when you have that lesson, then that kind of shows there was some growth there, like you're not in that same mindset once you're able to share a lesson from the story. But I wanted to know, was that something that you always, like, did you instantly understand that, or is that something that you kind of learned along the way, like pieced together, and then was like, you know what, this is how stories should be told?
Yeah, I grew into it because, when you're younger, you don't have the intellectual building blocks, nor do you have enough experience or wisdom. Maybe I should say, nor do you have enough wisdom. There's a saying that experience is the best teacher. But what if you're experiencing the wrong things? So I changed my mind about that one quote based on this story that is true. I read it out of a book called Range. And in the book, it was talking about how typhoid was being spread by this doctor, and nobody knew it. So people would come to his practice to find out whether or not they had typhoid. And just by examining their tongue, he was able to conclude conclusively that they would end up with typhoid, even if they came in healthy. 100% of his clients would end up with typhoid, only to find out that he was the spreader.
Mm-hmm.
He was the spreader. So, in as much as it was conclusive, those were facts, but it wasn't the truth. And you've got to be able to distinguish facts from truth. It's truth that sets you free, not facts. So it may be facts that someone did something to you or didn't do something, but that undermines the truth. The truth is you're empowered to change, to take those lemons and turn it into lemonades. You are empowered, and you could change the story you tell about yourself. I grew up in abject poverty. My father left my mother when I was 2 years old, never knew he was present. And when I was 8 years old, I started my first business because of poverty. So I tell people poverty was a blessing to me because I had to turn within. There was nothing on the outside of me that can give me the resources I needed. And then in this book, I tell the story of this race.
I love the story.
Chapter number one. But I have another story that I tell, and I'm going to put it in my second book and open my second book with that story, where my father said to me at 17, I wanted to go to university. And he said, meet me at my job, which I did. And he said, meet me at 3. I was there at 2:30. And the last bit of money that I used to catch the bus. I had no more money because I knew that he would give me enough money to go to university. Back in those days, they gave you cash. And I showed up there 2:30. I told the gentleman, one of his colleagues, I'm there. And he came back at about 3:30 to tell me, "Oh, I meant to come back earlier. Your father's not here." And that was 5 o'clock. 3 o'clock he came back. And then 5 o'clock he came back and said, "Oh, your father's not here." And I went to walk to the bus stop to get myself to get together because it was 5 miles away from where I was. And I had to get myself together to walk that 5 miles. And I had that blow below the belt, that disappointment, that rejection feeling. And when I lifted up my eyes, I had tears streaming down my face because I felt as if my dream was snatched away from me. And I looked up, and my father was driving by in a car. And that day, he did not see me, but I saw myself. He saw me as this poor little begging girl. And that day, I saw myself as the empowered woman that I am today. And I went on from that day at 17, got all of my degrees, studied at Oxford, Harvard, got all of my degrees in theology, psychotherapy. At 17, made the Guinness Book of Records. At 17, started advising government, consulting government, sat on all kinds of boards, presented all around the world. At 30, ran my country and owned several businesses in between. That little girl that he saw as poor was this best-selling author, business owner, and multimillionaire. She was on the inside. So when you tell your story, don't tell it for pity. You do not emerge into the next best version of yourself just because of an experience. You emerge because of the struggle in the experience. And that's where strength comes from. The strength that you need to sustain you in your next season of success does not come in the success, it comes in the struggle. And a lot of people give up right there and they get stuck. But you've got to see yourself like a worm in a chrysalis who struggles to get out, because in the struggle, it's the chrysalis squeezes out the fluid that's in its body, and then in the struggle, it gives the wings strength that it needs to soar. So life is not happening to you; it's happening for you, because it's in the struggle that the next best version of yourself emerges.
Wow. And that's very deep. And that's also a very good story. Um, and it just makes me think because, well, my next question was, at what point did you realize you are unstoppable? Would you say it was in that moment when you saw yourself as the woman
Yeah,
you are
I
today?
discovered that I was unstoppable when I was 5 years old in that race, because I didn't have the skill then. Nobody taught me how to tie my shoelaces because I had, 6 other siblings. They would tie my shoelace. I was the smallest. But when
Hmm.
they put me in that race, and all the other 5 year olds tied their shoelace waist, it was a shoelace race, and they ran off to the finish line, and I was still there. I could have cried. I could have said, "Why didn't you teach me how to tie my shoelace?" I could have played the victim. But my teacher, my grade 1 teacher, said, "Come on, Cindy, go." They wanted to give me a consolation prize. I didn't want a consolation prize. I wanted to run my race. And when I was 5 years old, that's when I learned I was in no competition with anyone else. I was only competing with the next best version of myself. I learned that at 5. And at 5, while the race was on, I made my teacher show me how to tie my own shoelace. And I tied my shoelace and I ran my own race. And I've been running my own race ever since, because that's when I learned that I was competing with the next best version of myself and that I could win.
Yeah, and when I read that story, when you say the line, when you say that you asked her to teach you, please, teach you, please, or teach me, please, that was just so heart touching. I was like, oh, but yeah, I could understand how that could have been that moment for you because that was such a significant moment. It's like for a 5 year old, just to even think of that. Because I think I would have been okay with the consolation prize. I wouldn't have even thought about, anything else. So just to know that was that moment for you, that's really, interesting.
And just
So
stop. So what I'm saying to people is all you have to do is stop, take a deep breath, and just say, I'm in a new season. So every new season needs a new strategy. That's what it is. And so you don't have to be a victim. I remember running out of money and sitting, and the bills were coming. My back was up against the wall. And I decided, okay, this is as far as I can be pushed back. All I need to do is take one step forward and I'll progress. And that's where I learned that I was the creator of my own wealth. I learned how to stop being a consumer and start being a creator. And it was always during a critical moment of crisis that I emerged to the next best version of myself, but I emerged with this wisdom. So I've lived through this, and this is why I mentor. I mentor millions now. And my goal for the rest of my life is to discover the women between the ages of 35 and 55 who want to take their life to the next level, who want to soar, who want to defy the odds, who knows what it feels like to be different. And that woman, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. So when I appear in people's lives, it's because they're ready to go to the next. They're ready to soar. And a person has to ask themselves the question, am my investment ready? Am I worth the investment? And as women, unfortunately, we're trained to make everybody else's life work at our expense. And we make it happen for our children, our husbands, for our employers. We make it happen for everybody else. And then at the end of the day, whatever energy is left over, it's enough for us to take a shower and wake up, hit reset, go out, blend in with the masses who are wearing masks. And those masks are the titles that they play: mom, employee, supervisor, wife. We play these roles and we play them well. And we live at the periphery of our lives and we make other people the center. Let me say it a different way. We make everyone else a priority and ourselves an option. But when you're able to show up 100% you with your cup full, you're able to allow the world to benefit from the overflow. And so I want to teach women how to make themselves a priority. Because when you show up as the best version of yourself, you automatically make this world a better place to live in. You automatically are serving humanity. But you cannot serve humanity if you're not 100% yourself and if you don't make yourself a priority. And that's why women today, they feel disconnected, unappreciated, undervalued, because we train people how to undervalue us. So we have this avatar, and people communicate with the avatar, love the avatar, but the avatar is not you. What if you had the courage to be and live just like that avatar that you're putting out there? What if you had the courage to do that? What if you had the audacity to do that? You would automatically make this world a better place. So I tell people, a lot of times people say, well, so many people fake on social media. I say, no, they're not fake. This is who they want people to see them as, because somewhere in themselves, that's how they feel. But what if you could wake up every morning and embody the energy of that avatar? Not just painting it, being it. And that's what I do with women. I take a cohort of women every 8 weeks, and I take them on a journey of self discovery. And when I finish with them in that program called SOAR, I'm telling you, who they become in 8 weeks is amazing. And that's, I've experienced success. I retired at 32. So I'm not telling people something that I haven't lived. I came from abject poverty to being a world leader at 30, being in the Guinness Book of Record, owning businesses. And so I'm here because of you. I'm here to give trade secrets. I'm here to take you to a place in yourself that you cannot go by yourself. And that's what mentorship is all about.
Wow. Well, and I do need a mentor, so I will be looking into your services. But so as we're getting close to the end of the interview, but I wanted to make certain I asked you about something I thought that was interesting about you. So switching gears a little, let's talk about love after 50 and getting married at 60. You and your husband were former colleagues. What type of work did you all do together, and what was it like, connecting all those years
It
later?
was a short period. So I knew him 30 years before I married him. And he was young, and we were in the same profession at that particular time. I was in government, but I also was a minister of the gospel. So I was bivocational. And I met him in ministry. I met him and his family in ministry, and he was young. And then after I left Bermuda, I never saw him again, never saw his family for 30 years.
Wow.
So, colleagues, yes, but not friends.
Wow.
And I always had a rule: I never date a colleague, never marry a colleague. That was my rule of thumb. So, if it wasn't for that 30-year period that I never saw him, never talked to him, I probably would have never married him.
Wow. So you almost didn't even happen. But like you said, colleagues and not friends. So that's actually a good thing that you all didn't, connect further years
Plus, he
ago
was
as
married
opposed
back
to.
then, so I would definitely not have had any interest in him at all. So I knew him, and then at 60, a couple of years before that, his first wife passed, and I called him just to give him my condolences, and
Mhm.
then never talked to him after that. And this lady prophesied that his wife was coming out of Bermuda, and I happened to be a Bermudian, and I was the only one that he knew. 2 years later, he called me and I told him he had blindsided me. And he said, okay, would I go out on a date with him? And I said, okay, it can't hurt because I had no interest then, you know? And
Right.
that's probably my staff calling, telling me I have another interview. But
Okay.
anyway, there is life. I had marriage in my bucket list and in my vision. I believe in writing a vision. And he was the person that I collided with, my destiny collided with, and then I end up marrying him. And it's a marriage made in heaven because he has capacity for me.
Wow. Yeah. I could see you being a lot. I mean, but in a good way. But yeah,
Well,
I
independent, not a lot. I'm not a lot at all. I'm the easiest person to get to understand because I'm self directed. I'm not needy. I'm all woman. I don't have any baggage, and I know what I want, and I know where I'm going, and I'm a problem solver. So I don't need people around me to solve problems.
So I get that. So I hate I use the word a lot, but the way you defined it, that's how I envisioned it. So
Yes.
I can
And,
understand
and,
that.
and to tell you the truth, when you know who you are and you live amongst people that don't know who they are, that's a lot for them. Because you're really not asking permission. And that's where a lot of women are, and a lot of professional women and successful women. They're afraid that they may be a lot to a man who wants to date them, but they're really not. A man who's a man, and I say once you have a man who adds value, and he's a high value man, then he will have the capacity for a high valued woman. So, like
Mhm.
you're a high value woman. So, what you're looking for is a high value man.
Okay. Oh, look, I got more than I was expecting out of this interview today.
Okay.
But I mean, of course, I knew it would be a good interview, and just so much, I'm gonna go back and just listen to everything again because you shared some stories, but I know there were like meanings to everything, and I just want to be able to sit and just really think on those things. So, before we close up, is there anything else that you would like to include, or any projects that you care to share that you're working on?
I'm always full of projects. I'm starting ETV, which is my own television studio. And so I'm building it out right now, even as we
Okay.
speak. And it's dedicated to women, empowering women, and developing all of the courses that go along with that. Trimm Institute for Global Leadership. And so that's my legacy. So right now I'm in the process of building my legacy, which includes all the amazing books that I've written. And we want to empower the next generation of women in leadership.
Wow. Well, congratulations. I'm looking forward to seeing when that launches and just all the content that you all will have. It sounds like it's going to be amazing. I know you already have your books, and I'm still working my way through those. So I'll continue to be following as well. So thank you so much, Dr. Cindy, for taking the time out to speak with me today. I wish you nothing but peace and blessings, and have a great second interview that you're heading into.
Thank you for having me. Call me anytime.
Okay.
All
All
right.
right.
God
Bye,
bless.
y'all. Peace
Bye.
and blessings, y'all.